You see this red wasp on the front of a hive. See that guard bee? Look at them going after that red wasp. Red wasps eat honeybees. They're carnivores. We're reminded that bees have lots of enemies. I frequently notice red wasps in and around my hives. I have never seen a red wasp carry off a live bee. On a couple of different occasions, I have seen a red wasp pick up a dead worker bee that was lying on the top of a hive box. Here you see another red wasp stalking a colony. I saw a wasp at this same colony yesterday. Look at all the different, you've got a fly. I mean, there's a honeybee. Up here is a fly. You've got two different types of wasp working these flowers. And then like right here, you've got a wasp, and right over here, you've got a honeybee. Let's see if I can get where I can get myself out of the shadow, or get my shadow out of the way. But in that shot, you can see there's a fly, a honeybee, and a red wasp, all working these flowers. Hey, this is Kirk from Brother B's Bees, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the relationship between honeybees and wasps. I don't know about where you live, but here in Alabama, sometimes there can be a little bit of a problem with red wasps. Red wasps feed off of other insects. They are carnivores, but they'll also eat from plants. They will eat fruit. Particularly, they like rotting fruit. And most of the season, wasps are not a problem. Red wasps and yellow jackets are the two main wasp problems here in Alabama. And so most of the time I don't see them too much around the hives, especially in the late spring and throughout the summer. But what happens in the colony of a red wasp is you have the heart of the queen laying season that takes place, and then in the fall, basically the queen quits laying. And so, as I understand it, she will lay a number of queens, and those queens will go into hibernation. And basically, there's no brood after that in the fall. And so right now I'm doing this video in October. And so in the fall, the queen has stopped laying. The queens are going to be going or already have gone into hibernation. And so you basically have a bunch of worker bees that are waiting to die. And typically most of those will be gone when the first frost comes along. So what happens is the worker bees bring in protein. They'll bring in, it may be from caterpillar and other sources, they'll bring in food and they'll feed it to the larvae. My understanding is the larvae then secrete a type of sugary substance. And so it's basically a reward for the worker wasp bringing some food to the larvae. And what happens is those worker wasps get used to, or addicted if you will, to that sugary substance. So when their work is done at the end of the season and they're basically waiting to die, they begin to drift away from the colony and they basically go in search of sugar. And so their sole existence becomes getting their next fix, if you will, on sugar. And so because of that, they can sometimes be a problem to honeybees. Now, they can eat honeybees, but the problem is typically when you see them around a hive. And in this video, I've got some footage of a couple of red wasps around a hive. They're not typically searching for bees to eat. What they're after is the honey in the hive. And wasp can smell the honey. And so that can become a problem. If you've got a strong hive and just a few wasps, it's no big deal. They can kill a wasp, and what they will do is they will ball up that wasp. They'll just surround it, they'll ball it up, they'll work the flight muscles on their bodies to create heat, and what will happen is, through a combination of heat and oxygen deprivation, they can kill that wasp. They basically cook it inside of that wad. But typically just one or two wasps are no big deal. But if you have a number of them, I know in some parts, I've noticed this particularly in Europe, they can have problems with them robbing out a colony. So some things that beekeepers do to help out with wasps, I haven't found it a particular problem with my colonies, but some things they will do is they will reduce the size of their entrance to make it easier for the guard bees to protect the colony. Also, in some parts of the world, they have started using underneath hive entrances. In other words, hive entrances that come up through the bottom of the hive instead of through the front. And it seems that that's pretty effective, that the wasps struggle to find those underneath entrances, but it doesn't seem to be a problem for the honeybees. I'll give you an example of that. I've got one of my colonies, I call it the backwards colony, because what has happened is it's a screened bottomed hive, but apparently there's a hole in that bottom. And so most of the bees don't go into that hive through the front entrance. They go in through the back and then up through the bottom. And so that does seem to help with wasps. And that's the main thing. Those are the main things that people do to deal with wasps. There's other things you can do. You can move the colony if they're being raided, but generally if they're being attacked by a bunch of wasps, you're going to have to move them about 3 miles away to get far enough away that they don't find them again. There are also wasp traps, and mostly what they do is you can take a 2-liter bottle and you can cut the top of it. It doesn't even have to be 2 liter. It could be a 12-ounce Coke bottle, but your standard plastic bottle, and they'll cut the top off and turn it and push it down inside the bottom with the cap off so you have an opening. And then you can put some rotting meat down in the bottom of that plastic container, and the wasp will go down in there to get to that rotting flesh, but then they can't get back out. Some people will use sugar water down in those, and that will attract the wasps because they are addicted to that sugar. But the problem is that it also can attract honeybees. And so a lot of beekeepers don't prefer to do this, but that is one way that you can cut down some on the wasp around your hives or colonies. Wasps do have a service. For example, they kill and eat a lot of the pests that are a problem to gardeners, and a lot of the insects that eat on plants or lay eggs or just create problems with plant life. Wasps eat those or take them and feed them to their young, and so they do have a purpose. And while I can see sometimes I will see wasps trying to get into some of my colonies, likely to get the honey that's in that, I've also seen them foraging side by side with honeybees on flowers, and likely they're after that sugary fix. They're after anything that's out there that has that sugary taste to it, because they've become addicted to it during the process of taking care of the young in their colonies. Wasps are also carnivores, can eat bees, but I frequently see them feeding side by side at sugar water troughs, and then you see them side by side foraging here on this aster. So I'm not an expert on wasps and honeybees, but those are some things I learned and thought you might find them interesting. Thank you for joining me today for Brother Bees Bees.